Hey, welcome to One Tired Teacher, episode 30. Every classroom needs a makerspace. I am so excited to talk about Makerspace today. I do want to tell you that each Monday on my Facebook page, Trina Debris Teaching and Learning, I will be doing a live session on Facebook talking all about Makerspace. I will also be doing a giveaway to 3 lucky teachers that come to the live and engage and participate. I will randomly select 3 people to win a free Makerspace moment in literature. I have challenged myself to doing a Makerspace moment in literature each week of the summer, and then coming on Facebook and talking more about Makerspace and how engaging it is, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And so if you want to catch me on Facebook Live, I would love to have you. I'd love to see you there. It will be every Monday. I'm trying for every Monday. It might be every other Monday, but I am shooting for every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That way, a lot of people hopefully can make it at that time, so you're live, so you have a chance to win the free Makerspace. But if you don't have a chance to be there live, you can certainly catch up and watch it in the replay. And since I'm in the giveaway mood, I'm going to include a free Makerspace moment in literature in the show notes that you can grab in the show notes. This is more of a first grade, second grade Makerspace, and maybe an early second grade. All right, so let's get started.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debris Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debris.
Hey, okay, so today it's all about Makerspace. Before we get started, I want to share a very special review that I got on my website in the comments section. This came from Shay Dredden. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. She says, I'm a fellow TpT'er, CoScine, and I agree strongly with this podcast and blog. She's actually referring to the post that I did on One Tired Teacher episode 27, Teachers is College for Everyone. I also did a blog post about this and talking about how sending a letter to my daughter, Emily, and telling her that I felt like the system and I had failed her when it came to the preparation of college. So if you want to check those out, I will link to them in the show notes, but now I'm going to finish reading what Shay said. So Shay said, my main job is that of a private tutor for math, chemistry, SAT, ACT, and grad school entrance exams. I meet with wonderful students all the time that are doing these great things, but don't quite have the score. There's so much. I wish parents and students knew about college, career, SAT versus ACT, and academic life. I use my tutoring platform to teach as much as possible on this subject so that students and parents can decide if college really is the answer. Thank you so much, Shay, for commenting on this post. I know it can be a pretty hot topic and it's very tricky for some people. We just feel like, honestly, kind of feel like we've been brainwashed a smidge. Not a smidge. I think we've been brainwashed a lot, even myself, as far as thinking that college is the only answer for our children and that you're a failure if you don't go to college, which I just have learned so much and realized so much in my journey with my own kids. This is not the answer, not necessarily the answer. Now, I went to college myself. I got my bachelor's degree and I got my master's degree, and I love learning. I loved school. And so I certainly feel like this can be the path for children that feel this way and know that this is what they want in their life. But I don't think it has to be the only way. So thank you, Shay, for commenting. And I just wanted to give you a shout out. From CoScine, the store is called CoScine. All right, so now let's get into Makerspace, because Makerspace is one of those things that I think can be such an impact on students. It's a way for kids to engage and discover, tinker and manipulate, build, create, problem solve, use critical thinking skills. I mean, it's just so amazing. I know when I first went into the media center after I had left the classroom and my stint as a student sports specialist, and I missed the fact that I wanted to be around. I wanted to be teaching again, but I wasn't ready to go back into the classroom and deal with all that I felt was insanity of the report cards and and dealing with like the expectations on the students and the testing and all those kinds of things. So I thought I was going to escape that. Misguidedly, I thought I was going to escape some of that as the media specialist. That's a whole nother story, how I was completely wrong in that aspect. But I will say one of the things that I loved about being the media specialist was that I really wanted to create this environment where kids came in and they loved to learn, and that they were drawn to this hub of literacy, but also this hub of thinking, and that it was this like explosion of thinking, or this celebration of thinking. And that's what I was hoping that the media center would be. I have a different philosophy, and I know there's like a different school of thought between like a library or a media center, and I won't get into that because that's not what this is about. But I'll say that my philosophy was it was a media center, and I wanted to use technology, and I wanted kids to be doing some hands-on activities. I wanted them to see the value of reading, looking things up online because they were trying to answer and ask questions. I also wanted them to find books that they fell in love with. I didn't want it to be a place where they just went and they picked out the book that they had to pick out because they were told they had to get a book, and then they returned to their classroom. So I wanted it to be so much more than that. So through that journey of trying to discover like what kinds of things I was going to include in this space of like thinking and a love of learning, I found Makerspace. And I was like, whoa, this is great. Like, this is like, it's almost, and people would say like, well, it looks like they're playing, which I kind of feel like, what's wrong with that? Like, why shouldn't they be playing? You know, we're learning so much as we're playing when we're kids. It's part of our developmental process. So, okay, they look like they're learning. Are they playing? They are playing. But they're learning while they're playing. And there's such a value to that, which I will speak more about that coming soon, because I have a very special guest where we sat down together and we talked about the value of children's play. So I will be back on that topic. But staying to Makerspace, I realized that this could be such a critical way for kids to really get their hands dirty, like get their hands involved in something and like create and discover and wonder. And so I found a lot of resources and reading and researching, and I even created some resources myself on starting a Makerspace. But the thing that I really realized as I was thinking about what I wanted it to look like in a media center, which is where I was finding it, most Makerspaces were being created in media centers. I thought to myself, I should have had this in my second grade classroom. I mean, I was all into multiple intelligence. And at one point when I was teaching, I had different centers set up as the different multiple intelligences. And my kids, even on their iPad, they had apps in like, this is People Smart, and this is Logic Smart, and this is, I had apps categorized by the intelligence. So I was like, this would have been such a powerful way to incorporate that multiple intelligence thinking, and that this could have been one of the areas in my classroom, and that all classrooms should have a Makerspace. And it's not just for media centers, it's actually for all classrooms. So that's when I really got excited, because not only did I think it was going to impact my media center, but I thought it could really impact like so many classrooms. And it doesn't even have to be just elementary school. It could be middle school classrooms. It could even be high school classrooms. And I know that sounds crazy, but why not have an element to where they're working on something that's hands-on, or they're working on something as an extension to what you're discussing, but they're building a project. They're creating models. I kind of liked the idea of engineering standards, and yes, even STEM, and definitely STEM, because I think STEM is really important, but I don't think it just has to be science and technology and math. I think it can also be literature. I think we can do so much with these thinking things through, and like creating models and problems and solutions to those problems, and then revising it and thinking again. I think that can be done in literature as well, which is when my Makerspace Moments in Literature idea was born. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's extensions to stories, to great stories that we can use to build upon, and that kids can become more engaged, and they can take their comprehension to another level by creating solutions to the problems in the story. So I that's one thing which I do speak about on my Facebook Lives. So if you are going to join me on Mondays, I would love to see you. But let's talk a little bit about what makerspaces are. So first of all, this is one of my favorite quotes about Makerspace. It's a quote found in a book called The Makerspace Playbook, which is excellent, and it's a must read, especially if you're thinking about Makerspace, and I will link to that in the show notes as well. It is revised every now and then, so I will link to the one that I took this quote from. So it says, Makerspaces come in all shapes and sizes, but they all serve as a gathering point for tools, projects, mentors, and expertise. A collection of tools does not define a makerspace. Rather, we define it by what it enables: making. I love that. I think that's so great. So what is a makerspace? So that's what a lot of people ask me. And I think it's interesting because I don't feel like it's trickled into the general classroom as much as it has into media centers. And I know when I was at the technology conference, not this past February, but the year before that, it was like all makerspace. There was so much stuff on makerspace. But I feel like it still has kind of halted in media centers and not really spread out more into the classroom, which was part of the reason why I created the Makerspace Moments in Literature, because I felt like, okay, well, let me give you some close reading activities to do with literature, which we know are standards that we need to cover, such as, character analysis or point of view or vocabulary, things like that is an essential part of teaching children, reading comprehension. And also the other reason was because I really felt like, let's get the administrators off of your back. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're following whatever standards, whatever roadmap. And then as an extension, you're going to do some more critical thinking or problem solving around it. You're looking at the problem in the story, and which is a story element. You're looking at a problem in the story, and you're thinking about possible solutions for that problem by creating some possible solutions, models of your solution. And so then you're tying engineering standards into your literature standards. So I think that's the purpose. Like, I felt like that was one way that I could bring Makerspace into the general classroom, and not only in the media center, but in the actual classroom. So, but some people are like, well, do I have a makerspace set up at all the time? And you wouldn't have to. If you're doing like a makerspace moment in literature, you could just bring out the materials you needed or that you were going to allow them to choose from, which is a big part of makerspace, is allowing kids to have some control over what they're doing and what resources they're using. That's part of the thinking critically. So I think you could definitely bring out some various materials for the makerspace, or you could actually have almost like a center in your room where they could go. So people say, okay, so what is a makerspace? A makerspace is a place where students can gather to create, invent, tinker, explore, and discover using a variety of tools and materials. And in a nutshell, it's an astonishing place to think and learn. And they can be very creative. It can be very artsy. It can be very mechanical if you're providing those kinds of materials in there. It doesn't, I mean, you wouldn't have to necessarily have tools, but you could have some. You could have, some pliers or things, and maybe that doesn't sound safe, but things that you teach them how to use, obviously, and that you're using for a specific purpose. So the thing that I love about Makerspace is that it really can be anything, and there are no limits and only possibilities. It's an environment that is only restricted by one's imagination. I think that is so incredible. It's only restricted by one's imagination. So whatever you can imagine, it can be. And it can be just a complete wonder of discovery. And like I said, my initial goal in the media center was to get my kids in, and I wanted them to stay there. I wanted them to believe that this was a place for them, for every kind of thinker. Sometimes I feel like we spend a lot of time focused on one type of thinker, the person that thinks very logical, they're like, okay, I've got the text, I'm reading it, I'm answering the questions, I'm able to do multiple choice questions. I can even do the type of questions that try to trick you, like if I know answer A and then I've got to figure out what answer B is based on answer A. Those kind of questions drive me crazy. But that's one type of thinker. When we introduce things like Makerspace, we're celebrating all types of thinkers. We're celebrating kids that think by doing, that they need to move and they need to utilize their hands, they need to utilize their creativity. We're talking about really engaging kids that struggle in the area of just reading and answering the questions and providing text evidence. We're allowing them to provide text evidence with physical representation and talk about like a way to get to kids with like dyslexia. And dyslexia is a big thing that I talk about or think about or did in my classroom because I myself have dyslexia. So I know what it felt like to struggle learning how to read as a child. I was very blessed by having a grandmother who spent every single day working on this with me and paying very expensive tutors to help me overcome some obstacles that were in my way at a very, in the 70s. So that was a, long time ago, but she knew that there was an issue and we needed to work on it. And I definitely learned strategies, and school went on to be, I had to work hard, but I didn't continue to struggle. So that was very helpful, those early interventions. But as a parent, I've gone on to have 2 children actually that are probably on a scale, like one in which was very difficult to identify, and she did an unbelievable job in school and she overcompensated massively. And so until, we got to the SAT, and that was a whole different story. But if you want to hear that, then you can listen to that episode that I referred to earlier, which I think is episode 27. But my son, on the other hand, he had more difficulty. It was more obvious, and we actually had him officially diagnosed so that we could get him a 504 in the classroom. But he is such a kid who learns by doing, and he has an incredible mind. He thinks about things that like I have rarely seen, and he is able to explain in detail. So he has strong comprehension and an ability to analyze and synthesize, but he has a really difficult time with the traditional method of school. And I think makerspaces are perfect for kids like him. And when we're talking about kids like that, kids that have dyslexia, kids that even have language issues, we're talking at least 1 in every 5 children. That's a massive amount of kids. So what if we captured them, we engaged them, we grabbed them, hold of them, and we gave them a different way to show what they know. We gave them a way to be successful and to be innovative and creative. Like, think about what we could do with that. I just think it can just be an amazing opportunity. So now that I've told you a little bit about what a makerspace is, and it can be anything that you can imagine. So you could put a variety of kinds of tools or materials in a small area in your room. It doesn't have to take up the whole entire room, and you allow it to, you can even build upon it. And if you're wondering, how am I going to get the materials? We are going to talk about that in the next couple of weeks, like some ideas of how you get materials, how you gather them. I will say, it's really helpful to have parents donate some things. But if you're in Title I schools, sometimes that's really difficult. But there's so many other options, which I will get to. So I want to talk about why I think we should have a makerspace in every single classroom. So number one, makerspace inspires creativity. And here's another quote from the 3 key qualities for a school makerspace. The most important quality of a makerspace is that it encourages creativity. This can be done with a space full of hand tools, materials, and finished projects. The culture in a space should support the idea that anything is possible. Oh, that's so powerful to me. So really anything goes in a makerspace. Kids can create with just about any type of material, and being creative allows kids to think of new ideas and new possibilities and different possibilities. And I think that's where we celebrate our different ways of thinking. That's a beauty of a makerspace. So that's one reason why I think we should have a makerspace in every classroom. It inspires creativity. So the second reason that I think we should have makerspace in every classroom is it encourages problem solving and critical thinking. So, and I feel like this kind of happens by accident. And I love those moments when kids are learning and they don't even realize it. And I know I've talked about this before on this show and with a variety of guests who celebrate those moments when we look and we think kids think they're playing or they think they're having a good time, they're engaged in an activity, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, they're learning and they don't even know it sometimes. They're just having so much fun. And that's why I think play is so important, especially for younger kids, but even for older kids, because when I spoke to my guest, Chris Kessler, which was in episode 15, I believe, we talked about doing escape rooms, having an escape room. Now that, in my opinion, is kind of playing, but I think it's playing for adults as well. But you're learning, you're thinking, so much is going on in your mind when you're engaged in that kind of an activity. I think it's such a powerful way of remembering information as well. When we make those connections in our brain to emotions, that's when we remember things the most. So I do think it's important. But again, I'll come back to play. So I do think metacognitive thinking is important. I think it's vital as well. I do think it's important for kids to know that how they are thinking and how they are learning. So I think cluing them in that, hey, guess what, you're learning. I think that's okay. But I think it's even more powerful to really bring that metacognitive aspect in is for them to realize that they learn by doing. And now if they struggle in this area, then sometimes it's a really good way to challenge ourselves and to really stretch ourselves in an aspect that we are not as strong. But I think for kids that are do and they play and the social aspect of a makerspace, the collaboration, the synergy that occurs, I think those things are important for kids to realize too. Hey, I learn best by working with others, or I learn through doing, and I learn best through working with other people and working cooperatively. I think that's pretty powerful. And sometimes I think it's really important just to hook them. We've got to grab them. We've got to figure out ways to excite them. So, and I'm not saying we have to entertain them 24 hours a day. I don't think that. I think sometimes kids need to know that their job is to go to school, and that's their job and responsibility. But how many of us love our job, and how many people hate their jobs? I don't want my kids to hate their jobs. I want my kids to look forward to going to their job and living their very best lives. I think that's important. I hope you think the same. So I think makerspaces draw kids in. I think they make kids love going to work. And I think that it helps them to think critically because they have to problem solve and they have to think about solutions and they have to think about doing things in a different way. And being challenged like that often feels like play. And I think that's pretty cool. All right, so reason number 3 that we should have makerspaces in every classroom. They provide hands-on learning. Here's another gold nugget from Worlds of Making by Laura Fleming. A makerspace is a metaphor for a unique learning environment that encourages tinkering, play, and open-ended exploration for all. So good. Makerspace mixes all aspects of STEM. It's easier to bring in science, technology, engineering, and math but it also sprinkles in some hands-on experiences, some imagination and discovery. It can truly be an engaging experience to all of your senses. And the beauty of encouraging hands-on learning is how the style of learning is so impactful for children, like I've been saying. It's an outside of the box thinking. And when you bring literature into the mix, you can also capture different learning styles and different topics. It doesn't have to be tied just to STEM. I think, again, STEM is important, but I also feel like aspects of literature, not just nonfiction or informational text, but literature. We've lost the love of literature, I feel like. We've gone to this one extreme of everything must be informational text, or we don't have enough informational text. And now we're taking away the beauty of literature. So I think we bring that back in things like this. And Edutopia, one of my favorite websites, they say makerspaces provide hands-on creative ways to encourage students to design, experiment, build, and invent as they deeply engage in science, engineering, and tinkering. And that was by Jennifer Cooper, Designing a School Makerspace, which can be found on Edutopia. And I will link to all of these. Number 4, Makerspace motivates the reluctant learners. I think this is a huge one. Those kids that often don't want to participate because, quite honestly, they don't feel very good about themselves. That's usually the reason. They feel dumb. They are reinforced in things where they continually fail. I love makerspaces in the way that they can fail, but they can learn from that failure. And they don't have to feel dumb because they can try something else. And it gives them a safe place to do that and not in necessarily an academic failure situation. Motivating children who don't love to learn is one of my favorite reasons for why classrooms deserve to have a makerspace. When children they've become so reluctant, and their natural curiosity makes them a lover of learning. We've got to tap back into that. And yet sometimes that love is stifled in a way in which learning is presented and assessed. And I think that's so sad. We are finding more and more kids are avoiding school. If you want to read more about my thoughts about education, then you can check out my blog post, the letter to my daughter on how the education system and I let her down. And I'll link to that as well. I talked about that earlier. So another beautiful quote on Makerspaces by Thinkers and Tinkers. What do you do in a makerspace? The simple answer is you make things in which you are curious, things that spring from your imagination that inspire you. The informal, playful atmosphere allows learning to unfold rather than conform to a rigid agenda. Making rather than consuming is the focus. It is the craft, engineering, technology, and wonder driven. Oh, I love that one. Oh, it's one of my favorites. Okay, so reason number 5. Let's wrap this up. Reason number 5, Makerspace fosters collaboration. Again, from the Library as Incubator Project, which was another good read about makerspaces. They say makerspaces are collaborative learning environments where people come together to share materials and learn new skills. They are not necessarily born out of a specific set of materials or spaces, but rather a mindset of community, partnership, collaboration, and creation. So the beauty in a makerspace is that we move away from competition, where everything is so competitive, and we move more to collaboration. Societies thrive on collaboration, and we are constantly putting kids in situations where they are competing. Why not take a closer look at how kids think, learn, and live? And makerspace is a powerful catalyst for synergy. That's such a beautiful part. So learning by doing and creating, collaborating, hands-on discovery such as Makerspace is just one step closer to making education personal for the people that are in it. It captures all types of learners, even our most reluctant. So Makerspace is a way to customize education to meet the needs of our students. I think that is amazing. So I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you will think about those 5 reasons that every classroom needs a makerspace. Because number 1, makerspaces inspire creativity. Number 2, makerspace encourages problem solving and critical thinking. Number 3, makerspace provides hands-on learning. Number 4, makerspace motivates reluctant learners. And number 5, makerspace fosters collaboration. I think this would be a great thing to do for a professional development plan. So if you have to do a PDP or PGP or whatever your school calls it, why not Makerspace? There's a lot of really good scholarly research out there on incorporating Makerspace. You might find more on the Media Center, but hey, this is something that can be beneficial to all kids in all classrooms. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know that I love talking about Makerspace, and I'll be talking about it each week on my Facebook page, Trina Debry, Teaching and Learning. I'll be live talking about how you can integrate literacy skills and standards and engineering standards into a beautiful makerspace. And I'll be talking some more about Makerspace and looking at some elements in a little bit of a deeper fashion. So hopefully you don't miss that. Again, it's Mondays at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you there. You never know, you could win a Makerspace Moments in Literature. I hope to see you soon. For now, this one tired teacher is ready for a long summer nap. Until next time, sweet dreams and sleep tight. And if you're feeling it, leave me a rating, review, or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a thing. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to give you a shout out on One Tired Teacher. All right, take care.